Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing the Ferrari LaFerrari in multiplayer in Asphalt 9. Now, this is one of the better cars this multiplayer season, so I decided to give it a shot and see how it was. So I have it at 2 stars, ranked 26, 21. All the upgrades and import parts that I could add, 6666, and let's see how this car performs. Now, it feels like one of the more sluggish cars in Class A, mainly because its acceleration and drifting are not especially great. However, it's not horrible. It has about as good top speed as the P1 or a car like that, and it also has good nitro efficiency, so if you can get up to speed, it's not all that much of a problem, and you can be going just as fast as they are. But the most problems come when you are trying to get up to speed, and when a lot of people get ahead of you in the beginning, and then you have to pass them. You don't have to worry about that in the P1, where you pass a lot of people in the beginning, because the P1's acceleration is very good. I have my P1 at 3 stars, and I do plan to make another video about that car. So right now, the car directly ahead of me is another LaFerrari, and the car directly behind me is a P1. Now I found that when you do not have nitro, or not much nitro, it's best to go this direction. Even though it's longer, you can keep speed better, because if you go the other way and you don't have much nitro, well, you're just going to lose a bunch of speed. Now, you see, he went through there fine, probably because he had a good amount of nitro. So if you do, then feel free to go that way. So here, just at the beginning of the second lap, we passed this other LaFerrari. Now, I knew that he was right behind me, and thus I would have to do the speed tricks and stuff that I knew how to do, so he wouldn't be able to pass me again. If you get into first place and somebody passes you like he almost just did there, well, you're going to have to pass them again, so you want to try avoiding that. Because I will say, passing people is one of the most stressful things in Asphalt 9 multiplayer, especially because of the 360 on the ground thing, where I have had plenty of times where I've been passing somebody faster than them, and they just do a 360 and I get knocked down no matter what. And sometimes it's difficult, so you have to be stealthy almost sometimes. Try not to pass people right next to them, and I know I didn't really do that with the LaFerrari back there, but sometimes it is harder to do than other times. But if you can, try to do that. So we are coming up to the end of this race here. Just land and wait to do the shockwave around the corner, and then cross the finish line in first place. Okay, so let's see what the cars were that we were facing. Another LaFerrari at 4 stars and a 3-star P1, as well as a couple Pininfarinas, which you really don't want to use anymore once you get to Platinum League, assuming you have a LaFerrari or a P1, because they are like almost 30 miles per hour faster than the Pininfarina. So here I get ahead at the beginning, but everybody else is saving up for shockwave, and they knock me down. So that is one thing I began to do after this race, I believe. I began to always at the beginning of this specific track on Scotland save up for shockwave at the beginning so that wouldn't happen, and thus I think I would have better speed when I hit the ramp anyway. So we've come back into third position already, even though we got quite a bit behind, so let's see if we can pull out at least a second place in this race. So this season it was a little bit more difficult for me to get to Platinum League than usual, because the reason is the Pininfarina, I believe, is probably the best one, and once you hit Platinum League, you can then use the LaFerrari in P1 and so on. So when you're getting close to Platinum League, you in a Pininfarina, or whatever your best car is that you can use in Platinum League, will be facing P1s and LaFerraris, which are like 20 miles per hour faster. And so you have to be very smart and very good in these races to punch through the barrier to get into Platinum League. Once you get into Platinum League, it's not too much of a problem, because you have the LaFerrari P1, which are just as good basically as the VLF and Ferrari FXXK in Legend League. So there shouldn't be too much of a problem getting to Legend League. And so I really think the hardest seasons to get from one league to another are where there is a big divide in performance between the cars in one league between the cars in another league, like this one that I'm talking about now. And it was even harder for me because my Pininfarina was only at 3 stars and not 4, because I didn't go crazy in the car hunt. So we have now come back from that horrible knockdown at the beginning of the race back into second position. I find often on the second lap of a race on this specific Scotland variant, I like just flat spinning back there instead of barrel rolling. Not the one I just did, but the one before it, because sometimes the barrel, if you go way too high, can cause you to land on your top or cause you to wreck. It's happened to me multiple times, such that I don't usually risk it anymore except on the first lap. But on that one where you have the 2 barrel rolls on either side with the one tiny flat spin in the middle, you're fine barrel rolling off of that. In that race, we beat 2 higher ranked P1s, and in this race, we are facing some more P1s. On Scotland again. on this track again. I don't particularly care for GameLoft's decision to limit the tracks that you can play in multiplayer each season. I mean, I know it kind of makes sense if you have some super high top speed oriented cars and stuff like that, but there are so few that you play the same ones sometimes multiple times in a row, which wouldn't really happen in Asphalt 8 very often, but it does in Asphalt 9, and yeah, that is one thing I think they could definitely do. Just add more possible tracks per season, even if they don't add all of them. This, I think, would make the multiplayer seasons more interesting. So the cars we are facing in this race are a 3-star LaFerrari, a 2-star P1, a 3-star P1, and a 4-star P1, as well as an H2 Speed, but yeah, that car is in far last place. I might still make a video about the Pininfarina, though I don't know yet. I didn't have all that many great races in it, but I did have one race where I beat, well, let's just say, some of the best cars this season in a 3-star Pininfarina, which is pretty cool. So we're coming up to the end of the first lap, and nobody managed to pass us in the second lap, and thus we come in first position. This other Legions United member was driving a 3-star LaFerrari. We see him again in the next race, which was quite close. So in this race, we are facing him as well as another 3-star LaFerrari. Yes, this is a LaFerrari only race on San Francisco. And so probably the main reason why this race ended up being so close is because they were both in better cars than me. Now, the reason I don't particularly care for 2 or 3 player races is because if you get knocked down and you can't catch up, well, you're basically guaranteed to come in last and lose a bunch of points. However, if you are in, say, a 6, 7, or 8 player race, even if you get knocked down, you may be able to catch up some more and come in around the middle, in which case you would technically be in a lower position but still go up more since there are more people below you, if that makes sense. Also, the fewer people there are in a race, the less you will go up if you come in first, but also, I guess, the less you will go down if you come in last. So that is one plus of a 2 or 3 player race. So this route over here is slightly slower than going to the left and going up the barrel roll, like that guy just did right there, and as you can see, he caught up to me at that point, but it is safer going the way that I did, because going the other way, you could fall off and go very slowly up the barrel and thus lose speed, or you could fall off, not even hit the barrel, or you could go up the barrel and not make it all the way onto the other platform, all of which have happened to me. So I just find that if you can just drift around and stay going on the right, it's safer, because you lose a whole lot less time doing that than you would lose if, say, you fell off and had to go the long way, because it's probably a couple seconds at least longer. So we have gotten back into first place again after a shockwave around those curves there. San Francisco is probably one of the more difficult tracks to determine exactly where you should use shockwave and where you should use other kinds of nitro. I personally think it's one of the more complicated tracks and one of the hardest to get good times on. It takes more tries probably than almost any other track. Obviously, certain variants are going to be easier than others, but take City by the Bay, for example, which is one of the earliest tracks that I really took the time to learn well for my battle with Lucas. Many people know about that. But anyway, I had thought about using that in my video between the Hemi and the Shelby, but it was so difficult to play them like the same in both of them because there's so many different things that could happen. It was somewhat inconsistent that I just decided not to do that. The tracks that I used, I did not have to play nearly as many times. So here we pulled out the victory. And in this next race, which is on Rome, we meet Dr. Illusion. Now he is in his P1, a 3-star P1 just like mine. And here we can see it definitely is starting up quicker. The reason he's not starting up as quickly as he might is because, well, he's bumping my car. And that Huayra BC up there, yeah, the Huayra BC is really not worth it for those that have the P1, the SV, or what's the other one, the 918, because while its speed is okay, its acceleration is pretty bad, and as we saw in a video by Work Fab, I think it was, it could not beat the 918 on the Nile River, which is one of the longer and straighter kinds of tracks. So there, I knocked that Huayra BC down. However, it allowed Dr. Illusion to pass me. And so if I hadn't gotten that knockdown and gotten hung up on the side, I would probably still be ahead of him. That's one thing you've got to be aware of. If you do a 360 to knock down somebody, which I didn't do in that case, it just happened when I hit the ground. I was already 360ing. Anyway, if you do that on purpose, you may hit the side or something and lose speed, and thus, even if you knock them down, somebody else may fly past you, and it will all be for nothing. That is another reason, aside from just wanting to play clean, that I rarely, if ever, do 360s on the ground to knock somebody down. So we don't catch up to Dr. Illusion in the second lap, and thus he comes in first. However, we did beat this Huera BC, which I am planning to make a video about, even though I do not have the car. The guy that made the 4-star 4GT video for me, Gurikat Singh, I believe his name is, has graciously recorded some races for me in his 3-star BC. So you can expect a Huera BC video. If there is a car that I do not go for, I will probably try to ask somebody in the Purple Team community or maybe somebody else to do some races for me. Thus, you can probably expect to see on my channel races in pretty much every single new car that comes out. So in this final race, we are facing a 2-star P1 as well as an Aston Martin DB11, somehow. I think he was a lot lower rated, so I guess now it's time for me to give my general review of this car. While it doesn't feel especially great to drive, it's kind of underwhelming at 2 stars at least, it is still a decent car for its class, about mid-class A I would say, and in this multiplayer season, it can do pretty well. It does have better nitro efficiency than the P1, and nearly as good speed, so if you can get up to speed, it can definitely be a good competitor. And to RevDeath, if you're watching this, sorry, I did not make the LaFerrari red, I just make all cars purple, and I could not bring myself to do otherwise. So we are coming up to the final turn. Let's see how the LaFerrari takes it. So it definitely drifts wider than the P1 and other cars like that, but it can still get around better than some of the worst drifting cars in the game. And we start the second lap, nothing really happens on it, and we come in first position. Thank you all for watching, please like the video if you've enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt 8 and 9 content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!